What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 311. Phil, how was your week? It's been, we had Halloween. We have the election is currently going on right now. A lot of stuff jam-packed, and we're finally into November. The lead up and all the build up to the next NLL season. I believe by the end of the month, the season will have kicked off, and we'll have to wait another week, first week into December, until the Bandits kick off. But we have a ton on schedule. We got NLL predictions today. We got the NLL Bowl predictions next week. You got the Bandits Bowl predictions the week after that. And then the week of Thanksgiving, we got the team review because we believe, we haven't seen anything official, but we believe the camp rosters are due to be cut down that Saturday before. So jam-packed November coming up. Are you excited?
Yeah, I mean, when people are listening to this, if it's the 6th, you are a day and a month from the Bandits season kicking off. And if it's on the 7th, you're a month away. It's weird. I mean, I feel like we always say this every year, that it came up really quickly, but we are already one-ish months away from the Bandits championship again, defending title campaign, and should be exciting, should be fun, and it's wild that it's here. I know we've been talking about how much we've been enjoying our off-season of one show a week, because it's a lot doing this, so it's great to have one show a week, but it's really exciting that it's getting to that time, and it does seem like it came very quickly. So exciting times, and Halloween was fun. It was really warm for one of the first times ever in Buffalo. I think it was a record high that day, actually.
I heard that too. Yep.
So yay for Halloween, and I tried keeping a loose tally because we'd never know how much candy to buy, and we had, I think, over 150 kids come to the house, which was a lot, and we were starting to stretch it thin toward the end of the candy. We had eaten too much in the lead up to Halloween ourselves. We did make it without having to get into the secret stash or anything, but it was a lot. It was a lot of kids, which is great to see. Great to see them out there. Love Halloween, so that was nice, but we'll be more prepared next year now that we have a general number in mind.
Yeah, I'm going from a high kid traffic area to one that there's no sidewalks and it's a very busy street, so I'm not anticipating having any trick-or-treaters for the rest of my life, pretty much. So I'll just get all the candy to myself, even though Brooke doesn't really let me have candy in the house. But we'll start diving into it because we got a jam-packed show. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. You know, you got iHeart, you got Odyssey, you got YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever that has podcasts, we are on. You can check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can also check out our store on our link tree, on our social media sites, or at the top of the website, hitting shop at the top of hitting the shop tab at the top of the website. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. So if you're bored, sitting at work, waiting to punch out, just go follow us on all those social media sites. We're very, very close to 600 on Facebook. I would like to get that done and taken care of before the NLL season kicks off. And as we promised last week, I already went over November's schedule last week, kind of blew through that to start the show. Remember, we're going back to 2 shows a week starting in December. We already talked about that. We already talked about last week that any Bandits Friday games are going to be released on Thursdays. Now, our episode that's normally on Fridays, Thursdays for any Bandits episodes. And we're going to officially announce our in-season schedule today for Sundays. This was a producer Pat idea. We will be announcing a Bandits MVP anytime the Bandits have a game that week, so stay tuned for Sundays. We will announce a BSC Bandits MVP on Sundays. Monday's regular show, it's the reaction to the game that was or around the league if the Bandits do not play. Tuesday, Phil's article, back for a third straight year. Wednesday, we will be doing our weekly NLL picks again. Pat is the defending champion. Don't know how. Don't know like it because I watched every single NLL game last year, and I think I came in third. I would have to review that, but I know Pat won, and I'm not happy about that. I'm coming out for blood this year. Thursday, PK's NLL Power Rankings. I'm going to be shifting it a little bit. I'm not going to be writing 15 articles, even though there's 14 teams this year. I'm not going to be writing 14 synopsis. It's going to be either the top 8 or the top 10 that will be a dedicated conversation, and I'll still be ranking all 14 teams, but I'm not writing it for every single one of them. And then, like we said, Friday, unless a Bandits game is on Friday, that regular episode will be out Friday or Thursday, depending on when the Bandits play. Bandits fantasy game. We're going to officially announce that. I'll give you more details now, but it'll be officially announced next week or the week after, and we'll be having people enter it. Basically, what you're going to be doing, I'm going to have Bandits in different tiers. You're going to get one player from each tier, and we're going to have scoring systems. So goals are going to be worth a certain amount. Assists, loose balls, block shots, cause turnovers, so on and so forth. So you're just picking one player from each tier. I will be tracking that all year long. You're going to gather points based on the stats that they do in that game. So you got 18 games to accumulate stats. If a player is traded, you are not going to get a replacement. If a player is injured, you cannot pick up a free agent player whatsoever. It's a one-time pickup, and we'll be closing that right before the Bandits kick off their season in the beginning of December. Again, this is completely free to play. You can win some BSC merch. It's just another fun way to keep everybody involved and get more fans more interested in the sport of lacrosse and especially the Buffalo Bandits. And then the last thing, let us know if you have any interest in this idea. We were going to try to lock in more officially this, but I'm moving now, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes in my real life that's going on. But our original plan was that we were going to try to set up player or people interviews for the team that the Buffalo Bandits are going to be playing that week. We were going to be getting a deeper dive into breaking them down and having a person that follows them more in depth break down what that is rather than our just normal Friday or now Thursday episodes. So if you do have interest in hearing us break that down further with people or players from the other teams and have them come on our show and interview them, let us know if you really love that idea. I will try my best to get at least a handful of them this year, but look forward to that next year is the main goal to get that going. But jam-packed in season. I told you we would be expanding it a little bit. You know, it's Phil, I'm excited, but also a little overwhelmed for the next 6 months.
I mean, considering it hasn't started yet and you already sound exhausted, just thinking about
moving. I don't
what
know if you've heard that.
I haven't. I have not.
That's a lot of work.
We painted our living room, so you know, I'm right there with you.
You want to come over and
it's the same thing, I assume. Moving, painting one room. It's the same. So yeah, a lot going on. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot for you, especially I said it. I think a few episodes ago, especially for you. I feel like January is when you're gonna be able to exhale a little bit. We'll be into coverage. We'll be into 2 episodes. We'll be a little more used to it. The holidays will be past. You'll be further along in your moving process. So I think January things will mellow out a little bit where you can breathe a little bit more and actually like get into the Bandit season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I had producer Pat make the graphic for the schedule, so we'll have that pinned to all our social media sites. If you ever get confused, you can just reference that. We'll kind of break that down the next 3 episodes as well to get you all ready. But, you know, Fantasy Bandits game is going to be released either next week or the following week. Try to build up how many people want to be in it. Get that graphic out there so you can pick the players from the different tiers and move on with that. And then, you know, like I said, reference the social media pinned graphic if you have any questions on what December through hopefully the end of May looks like, because if we're going through the end of May again, that means the Buffalo Bandits are in the championship, and hopefully that means they are three-peating. But we'll move on to the Buffalo Bills here. Bills versus Miami. This was probably the closest Miami game in quite a while, but as is tradition, Josh Allen is the daddy of the Miami Dolphins. They won 30-27 on the foot of Tyler Bass's franchise record 61-yard field goal. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn, but in the past I have said some things about Tyler Bass and his performance, not this year, but in previous years. And there's a big reason that I have had other positions higher on the list than him to replace. And it's not because he hadn't missed kicks, because he has missed. He's missed 3 extra points. He's missed 3 other field goal attempts. My biggest thing is when it was crunch time, he had not missed a clutch kick yet. He made that field goal to tie it in Houston. Yes, they ended up losing, but that's not on him. He tied the game. I think really all I was hoping for was he would get the opportunity to have a massive kick and he would make it to get his swagger back. Now, he did that. Now, this does not excuse his missed kicks and his lack of performance and execution that he has performed all this year. But 61 yards in that stadium might be one of the longer ones, if not the longest one ever kicked in that stadium. The breeze, everybody that's ever been to a game there or watches Buffalo Bills games knows it's very windy. It was an impressive kick. He probably would have nailed it from 65. Again, not looking past the issues he's had before, but there's a reason that I did not have him at the top of my list for replacement or bring in other players to possibly replace him, is because he has not missed a kick that the Bills needed him to make. Yes, he missed a field or an extra point earlier in this game, but when it came down to needing a kick, he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, I forgot how long the other kick in the game was that he hooked in, ended up going right down the middle. I remember the announcer saying he was 3 of 6 from that distance this year, but even that one looked like it was going not well wide, but it looked like it was going wide. Ended up hooking right down the middle, and you could see he was trying a similar thing with the extra point, but being much closer, it did not have the time to hook back to the center of the pole. But even the 61-yarder, I mean, not only the timing of it, the clutch performance, the distance, but he had so much room left for the 61 yards, and he hit it. I mean, the one camera angle had it going literally like dead over the pole in the center. It looked just perfect. And you could see in the post-game reactions, him getting the ball, him getting, pretty emotional, his team rallying around him. Obviously, everybody knows he's going through it this year. A lot of talk, a lot of the Bills doing what they need to do to cover themselves, bringing in other kickers to challenge him. He's, no one's risen up in the practice squad or anything to pass him, but it's still that extra push. He needs to be better, and it's still someone behind you. Like, in a way where the team feels about you in that moment when they're bringing kickers from the outside in. That isn't exactly the best feeling. So for him to get the game ball, to win a game like that, a big one, a division rival, I know, you could say that Miami's pretty buried now, but if they won that game, who knows how the rest of the season finishes out. I mean, last year Miami was cruising through everybody, and the Bills were struggling and were pretty much 500 or under 500, and there was no chance of the Bills coming back and winning the AFC East, and Miami fell flat on their face, and the Bills came back and won the AFC East. So you don't know until you know. So this was a really big win for the Bills and a huge momentum boost for Bass. Do I trust him every time he goes out? No. Even an extra point, he scares me every single time he kicks the ball. But like you said, he showed that he can do it in that moment. If he's sent out there again right now for a 61-yarder, same exact setup, do I think he's going to hit it? I have no idea. I'm hoping he is, but I think the big thing is he can, right? It wasn't crazy wide or anything. It was right down the middle. He came up big, and just knowing that he can do that is all you really need from him right now. He hasn't been called upon to win games too often this year, so knowing in a huge spot that he could come up and win it it's what you need from your kicker. And yes, he's struggling, but like you said, hopefully that gets his confidence back, and hopefully he's a little bit more trustworthy moving forward.
Yeah, and it's credit to Sean McDermott, who has not shied away from his confidence in him. And even sending out Tyler Bass to kick that one, I was like, man, if he misses this, Miami has a chance to get in field goal. I know there was 5 seconds left on that clock, but
it's the Bills.
The speed of that offense to do a quick, snap, hike, get it 5-10 yards with the speed of those wide receivers, go down, call a timeout with 1 second left on the clock. It would have been very, very tough, but a 61-yarder, they would have gotten it at like midfield. It was, if he wouldn't have made that kick, Sean McDermott might have been speaking to it, but the confidence he has in Tyler Bass to absolutely nail that kick, it's good for him. Hopefully the trend continues, and hopefully they don't need him to kick those ones very often, because that usually means they're absolutely killing in the passing game. But yeah, I guess that's a good transition, because Allen 25-39, 235, 3-1. Another interception, but I won't blame him because that kind of bounced right off Coleman and right into Ramsey. That should have been a walk-in touchdown. I thought the defensive line was absolutely terrible in this game. They couldn't set the edges. Achane was 12 for 63 with 5.3 a clip, and Mostert 10 for 56, 5.6 a clip. If Miami was just running it every time, Buffalo wouldn't have been able to do anything. But Miami's passing game behind the line of scrimmage killed them. Achane was 8 for 58 with 1. Smith was 5 for 46. Mostert was 2 for 32. Hill's first nice game in a while, 4 for 80. It seemed like this defense was being exposed, and that's the biggest. And I know they got the win. It's very important. It definitely puts yourself in not even the driver's seat. You're running over the competition in this division right now, because the Jets are 3-6, you're 7-2, Miami's 2-6, and New England's 2-7. So you absolutely have a stranglehold on that division with one more game versus the Jets to come up. But this is what is a bit concerning to me, is they're on the defensive side of the ball. They haven't been able to show that they can consistently stop the run against a good running game. And we saw that versus Derrick Henry especially. We see that both times versus Miami. Achane has just eaten them alive in his career versus the Buffalo Bills. Hopefully they can get that addressed. It's not good with Smoot already going down. It sounds like they're bringing back Jordan Phillips. You'll probably know that before me. It's rumored on X right now, what he put on Instagram, that he's coming back to Buffalo. Nothing official yet, but it's definitely something that they need to address big time, is fixing that run game on defense.
Yeah, I mean, the only time we've really seen them do okay in a pretty impressive game, because it was raining, was at Seattle with Kenneth Walker. He is a very good running back, but that was it. I mean, other than that, they have been demolished. They are known to be one of the worst run defenses in the game, and Miami has a really solid run game, and they showed it. I mean, Achane made them look horrible multiple times. Mostert did the exact same thing, and they just kept running and running and running and making it look really easy. And even the passing. I mean, Tua didn't light up the world, but 25 of 28, 3 incompletions. That's not good. Miami's offense has been obviously better with Tua back under center, but they're still not a incredible offense that should be kind of just handling, the Bills defense that was doing pretty well here and there. But major concerns overall on the defensive side. Like you said, defensive line, no pressure against Tua for the most part, and just the holes were just gigantic. And with someone like Achane speed, even like you said, the screenplays out of the backfield also just opening things up. I mean, Miami exposed the Bills in a very bad way. I think they were, I don't know, this game really could have gone either way in 2 different ways. The Bills had opportunities to blow this game out of the water if Coleman gets that touchdown before half, and then they had, first and goal, and then there was the 2 holding penalties that knocked them way out of touchdown position. If you get 14 points before half, you're right. If you get an extra 14 points before half, this game is completely different, but at the same time, Miami had opportunities as well to kind of take this game, and again, they just really exposed the Bills defense for really not being where we want it to be. And this is just, it's weird, right? We've talked about this. This team is very strange. Against really good competition, they haven't been very good. Against mediocre competition, they've been great. And this is a game where Miami's kind of on the rebound as a team, getting some of their healthier players back, and they gave them a good run, but the Bills still won. But if you tell me that the Bills are going up against the best of the best in the AFC in playoffs right now, I wouldn't bet on them to do all that great. I mean, I think they have the offense to do pretty well. Anytime you have Josh Allen out there, you have an opportunity to win a game for sure. But if Baltimore came back into town right now, I think the Bills would be in a lot of trouble with Henry and Jackson and trying to stop that offense again. So it's just weird. 7-2 is not what you expected from this team. That's still in a deep rebuilding year, and it's weird to be talking kind of negative about a win, but it didn't look amazing. And the Bills they're just a weird team right now. I mean, only 2 losses. They look in theory good on paper, but realistically, it's still a rebuilding year. And I think a team like Baltimore, we'll see what happens with Kansas City in a couple of weeks, but those are going to be the big games of what this team really is. Miami, while a good challenge, really, I mean, the back and forth aspect of it in the second half was a lot of fun to watch. It was a good football game, but they're still not really a great team to be challenging the Bills. So it'll be interesting to see when the challenge comes, which is probably KC in a couple weeks, what this team realistically looks like. And even KC right now, they don't really have much of a run. I mean, Hunt's decent, but he's taking, 30 opportunities to get barely 100 yards. They're just feeding the heck out of him. So he's not a great running back challenge. But I don't know. The Bills' defense is just kind of, the Bills in general, just they're weird right now. They're in a weird spot.
Yeah, I only have 3 more things here, and they're all really quick. This team still has to get out quicker starts, like they did versus Seattle, and you saw what happened there. The Miami game, again, they got up to a slower start. You can't continue to go out to slower starts like this and try to pick it up in the second half. It's just not a winning formula whatsoever. Second one, no Cooper hurt. Samuel is providing nothing. Coleman just got hurt in this one. You need these wide receivers to get healthy because this game, yes, the passing game looked really good with Shakir. But you need more than just Shakir out there. You need a healthy Cooper. You need a healthy Coleman. Now, I don't think they're going to need them Sunday, 1 p.m. versus Indy, because Indy, you can do a lot of stuff on their defense. They are not a very good defensive team. Flacco gives them a respectable offense with, Downs and Pittman and Jonathan Taylor and so on and so forth. But I don't think you're going to – if – the week after, when you face Kansas City, that's the big matchup there. And if Kansas City gets 1 loss and you end up taking out Kansas City, you're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed because you're already ahead of Houston at 6-3. You're ahead of Baltimore at 6-3. Yes, they have the head-to-head, but you got that edge over them right now. If you take care of the business with Kansas City and they get 1 more loss, then you continue to roll like this. But there's still a lot of tough games on the schedule. They still got San Francisco. They still got Detroit. They still got Kansas City. So you got to keep rolling and address those issues. But I do like the direction they're headed. I think the defense has some issues to work out, and their offense, their wide receiver pass catchers, have to get healthy if this offense wants to continue.
Yeah, the few other ones I have, when it was 10-6 and it was 4th and goal and they went for the touchdown instead of going for the field goal to make it 10-9, I thought that was a great call and I don't know, he's been more aggressive. Sean McDermott has been in those situations, but still you could possibly see in that situation like, field goal gets us only down by 1. At that point in the game, realistically, you would stop Miami's offense for the most part. Again, they'd only put up 10 points to that point, so to go for it on 4th and goal was a little bit risky. Really nice to see them do that. Matt Collins, yes, he got the touchdown, but my goodness, like you just talked about with the wide receivers, you're once again relying on Matt Collins to do things for you, which you never should have to do. That's not great. Josh Allen's hero ball, which you also had in your notes, my goodness. You live and die by it. We talk about it literally on a weekly basis. I mean, 2nd and goal, he's being dragged down, just kind of flicks it toward the end zone with Morris there to catch it. Thank goodness he was there, but it's 2nd and goal. Like, even if you take the sack or you throw it out of bounds or figure something else out to live another day, it's only 2nd, it goes to 3rd. Like, that situation didn't really call for hero ball, but because he's Allen, he made it work, and it sounds amazing. So it's always kind of, I don't know, it's more of a fun note than anything that's who the Bills are. That's who Josh Allen is. He'll get these incredible highlights being dragged to the ground, getting a touchdown, where at the same time, he could have been dragged to the down and that is picked off, and we're talking about it a little bit differently, but that's just who Josh Allen is. Ray Davis. I only had a few opportunities, but just every time he's thrown in there, it's really good to see him performing really well, that the Bills have a true second running back that can go in there and make an impact, not just let me excuse Cook for a play or two, get him off the field, let him rest for a moment, but someone who can actually go in there and make a huge play, I think is really big for the offense to have somebody that can step up, give Cook a break for a moment, and actually come away with a monster, screen pass touchdown out of nowhere. Like, it's cool to have two guys that have that explosive play opportunity and that he can be a legitimate running back as a backup. It's really good that the Bills know they have that and that they're also willing to use it in a game. Again, he didn't get a lot of touches, only 4 carries, only 2 catches, but on those 6 plays, he looked really good, and obviously the one really big touchdown. I mean, it's just good to see the Bills have that, and it's good to see Ray Davis stepping up into that role. When he gets those opportunities, he's really making the most of them.
Yeah, I know it's down the road, but every time I see Davis run, it's like, okay, this is why you don't pay running backs, because you can draft one in the 4th round here, and he's
and he looks great.
Starter. So, don't pay James Cook in 2 more years. But we'll move forward. Like we said, they're facing Indy Sunday at 1 o'clock, so we'll break that game down. Hopefully you can move to 8-2. Don't slip up and start looking forward to Kansas City. I don't think this team will, but Indy's another team on your schedule that you just got to take
and
out.
Another team with the running back.
Another team with a running back. Stop, Jonathan Taylor, please. But we'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres. We're back to the time where I don't really want to talk about this team. Friday versus the Islanders, lost 4-3. Cousins finally, Zucker and Power, Levi. God, Phil, I hate these last names. Levi, 32 of 36 saves. Shots were 36 of 35 in favor of New York Islanders. I almost did it this week as well. Saturday versus the Red Wings. They lost 2-1. Tuck was the only goal scorer. Was shorthanded. UPL, 21 of 23 saves. Shots were 32 to 23 in favor of Buffalo. Record sits 4-7-1.
The defense looks horrible. In the Islanders game and the Detroit game, I know both games, I mean, Levi, I thought honestly played fine. The goals he gave up were really bad defensive breakdowns, and the amount of times that pucks go right through the like literally through the defense in the middle of the ice, that like passes that should never get through, like once or twice a game, let alone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game in both games against the Islanders and the Red Wings. Just I have no idea. Like the defense just looks so lost. Like they're looking all over the place. They're never looking at the puck. They're never looking at the players they need to pick up. If they do pick someone up, it's the wrong guy, leaving somebody else wide open. Like the defense looks incredibly lost. And the amount of passes, again, that just get through the middle of the ice that should not be able to get through the middle of the ice. As we know from playing NHL on Xbox, those passes don't get through. The computer picks them off every time. It's not allowed. But I guess if you're playing the Sabres, they just let it through every single time. The defense just really concerns me right now. They seem bad. I mean, the amount of opportunities, even against the Red Wings, I know they only had 23 shots, but I thought the opportunities the Red Wings had were better than the Sabres' opportunities, and I thought UPL had some monster saves in that game. And again, it was passes just getting through the middle, and the defense just, again, like doing 360s, trying to figure out who they should be picking up while the other team's just passing around them. I don't know. The defense has been very concerned with what they're doing. Again, 4-3 is an offensive okay game, but the defense not great. And then 2-1 sounds like the defense was okay, but honestly, I thought UPL saved and bailed them out multiple times. I mean, they had 2, 3, 4 breakaways in that game, and I thought Tuck was amazing against the Red Wings, pretty much single-handedly. I mean, the save he made in net was amazing. His shorthanded goal all by himself. He looked really, really good in a few other opportunities, but I don't know, this team is just lost a little bit. Zucker did look good in both games. It was good to see the excitement from him, like someone who, again, the passion was nice to see. Just that when he scored, he got ridiculously pumped up and trying to like yell at everybody on the Sabres to get going. I like to see that, but overall, this team looks flat and not what we were hoping for just yet.
Yeah, I'll give credit to Lindy Ruff in this situation. Is the defense has been an issue, and in the Tuesday game that's playing right now versus Ottawa, they're up 1-0. But he sat Matthias Samuelsson and he sat Yoki Haru. Both of them are healthy scratches going up in the box. Two veteran players who have not been playing well. Samuel especially, he's been absolutely terrible this year. So putting them in a box and finally making a statement. Like, I think this should have been made a few games ago, but credit to Lindy Ruff for finally doing something that we've been calling for years now. Something that Don Granado did not do. Something that,
Players
he
coach.
should not be named did not do as well, besides putting Jeff Skinner on the fourth line. But it's something that needs to be done. You need to be held accountable for your play, and he's finally doing that. And he's putting Gilbert and Bryson in, who, yes, I do not think are as talented as Samuelson and Jokiharju. But guess what? If you're not playing well, there's players behind you that will take that role and try to run with it. But yeah, that defense, there was no defense to be found in the first New Islanders. What am I doing, Phil? The Islanders game. The first goal, I don't know what the play was with the defense, but if they were joining the rush, nobody got back. Like, Levi got absolutely cooked on that one. Clifton played it poorly on the second one. Buffalo doesn't score on the 5-on-3. And then on the penalty kill, Buffalo was just chasing. Like, every time the puck moved, you saw a Buffalo player go right for that player, and it just, like, the Islanders just passed it all around, leading to a wide open shot. That was the pass that went right through Power's legs. Like, the lack of awareness from this team that I've seen all year long and in years past, where you're just not aware of your surroundings whatsoever. Like, example, you're driving a car. You should always be aware of your surroundings, checking your mirrors whatsoever. You're playing hockey. Like, people are on the ice skating around. It's not like nobody's going to be skating behind me because I'm in this position. Guess what? People move on ice. That's what skating does. They get into positions where you're not going to see them. You have to have your head on a swivel, and I've never seen, like, I don't watch other teams closely playing hockey. Like, I don't go out of my way to watch Boston. I don't go out of my way to watch Columbus and so on and so forth. But it feels like this team, they only focus on who has the puck. Like, that's what it feels like. A lot of these forwards coming back and back checking, it seems like a lot of these players are just solely focused on where the puck is and not who's skating behind them. And Tage Thompson's an example. He came back, and for some reason he skated to the guy with the puck instead of noticing the guy that's skating right behind him. The lack of awareness from this team this year and years past is just so confusing. Their special teams is awful. Their power play is 3 for 35 right now. Their penalty kill is not any better, and their 5-on-5 scoring that was doing really good this season has kind of dried up. So this team, and credit to Lindy Ruff, he said multiple times, okay is not good enough. And he understands why this fan base is ready to jump and attack this team because it's been 13 years of the same incompetence. Like, I am finally happy that he finally sat two players that do not deserve to be on the ice right now because of their performance up in the box. Something has to change in this team, and change it quick, because last time I checked the standings, I was like, man, Buffalo's right there. They're like almost dead last in the standings right now in their division. It's something. I was so excited for this season. I was excited after that third 3-game losing streak where they seemed like they were getting it back together. This is 2 games, both against teams that you're going to be battling for a playoff spot against, and you came up zilch in both. You didn't even take it to get that pity point in overtime. It's not good enough. Like, it's just flat out not good enough, and I'm at the point where I'm wondering, like, even if they play Lindy Ruff's style, is this team talented enough, and are these players talented enough? Because, yes, they're getting opportunities, and yes, they're getting chances, but when do you actually think, okay, they're not cashing it in? Maybe it's not unlucky. Maybe it's just they're not good enough. Like, maybe these players just aren't talented enough.
Are you saying they need to go through a rebuild?
I don't think they can with their cap. Like, I don't think they can move some of these deals. Like, I think they're stuck with the players they have, and yes, I still stand by you need to pay players ahead of time, but man, Phil, like, something's, and again, they're up 1-0 against Ottawa right now, but I'm absolutely, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually terrified that they're going to be stuck with these contracts, and these players just aren't simply good enough.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like, it's almost like Lindy understands, because he does, what it's like being in Buffalo as a player, as a former coach, and he's understanding now as this team is kind of imploding, and they're 4-7-1, and what he's witnessing on the ice, like, he's understanding what fans are watching for the last 13 seasons, and just, like, understanding the frustration of the fan base. Like, why can I not get this team to play hard every single night, to understand how to play hockey in general, and like you said, benching a few players and just why the fan base is so upset with this team, because he can now see it firsthand what everybody else sees, and is sadly the head coach of it. Hopefully he is the man to right the ship and get this team back under control sooner than later, but it's off to a rough start. And again, I don't know. I know I'm being probably too nice to them, but I do think the goalies played okay in both games. I really think the defense, it was horrendous in both of them, and really just let them out to dry at multiple occasions. I mean, Levi, even in that Islanders game, also had a few breakaway saves himself and a few post-to-post saves where the defense, again, just nowhere to be found. So, yeah, giving up 4 goals doesn't look good, but I really think he was in trouble on most of them. And UPL gave them a chance to win like he did a lot of last year in that Red Wings game, saving a ton of big saves himself. But one shorthanded goal for the offense does not cut it.
Yeah, so it's a busy week for them. They got 4 games before we talk to you again. Again, they're playing Tuesday versus Ottawa, so you'll know the results before even listening to this episode. Thursday, got the Rangers. Saturday, Calgary, and then Monday, Montreal. You need to start stacking. Again, 12 games in, 70 games to go. God, 70 games to go. And you got to start stacking wins here. Like, there's no excuse that you need to get 6 of 8 points in this, and it starts with Ottawa. Again, they're up 1-0 right now. Got to beat Ottawa. That's another team that you're going to be fighting with. It just started the second period. So we will talk about our sponsor before we get into the NLL predictions and predicting what the standings look like. Phil, take it away with Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar, and how that works, they have a giant wall featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. You buy a preloaded card. You put your card in one of the 30 taps. You find one that you're interested in trying. You grab a mug and you try as little or as much as you would like. Either find a new favorite or go to a favorite that you already love and just want to keep drinking that one. They have a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
So Wednesday, it is the weekly trivia with Geeks Who Drink at 7:30. Thursday, Dart League kicks off. If you have any questions on that, you can check out their Facebook page because they have talked a lot about that, and all the details for it are there. That kicks off at 7 p.m. Friday. Free Dart Night, that continues. I think it's their 3rd straight week of this. Absolutely love it. 3 to 12, you can go there and practice if you're in the Dart League on Friday. Saturday, the 9th. They have euchre tournament starting at 3 p.m., $10 buy-in, which includes a drink. And then Sunday, of course, is the Bills watch party, one of the best places to watch the Bills game with other Bills fans. You got the halftime jersey giveaway. You got the player of the game. If you show up in their jersey of the player of the game, you get a free gift. There's drink specials as well. That game kicks off at 1 p.m. Go cheer on the Bills. The sound is on. So if you have any questions or looking to find out what else is on deck and what other events are being coming up in November, you can check out their Facebook page for all their post events, or check out tapthattaproom.com for what's on tap and what's on deck. Phil, let's kick off the Bandits here. They released Jake Rosa, so that is one less lefty forward. Bryce Sweeting is not in camp, so to me, that means he's going on the holdout list. Nothing official yet. So right now, they have 32 bodies in camp, I believe. So they released their thank you. They were one of the 11 teams of 14 that actually released the camp bodies that are there. More content, please, NLL and NLL teams. Reminder, they have a preseason game on the 16th in St. Catharines versus Las Vegas, and the 23rd they face Georgia in the ILA. Now it comes time to start predicting the 14 teams. We got one less to predict this year because, Panther City folded. RIP to them. But, last year we did it, and we predicted the NLL standings. I think we did pretty well. Some notables. We both had Albany 15th. A little bit wrong there. I had Georgia making it. That was right. We both had Panther City, the 7th seed. That was right. We both had Toronto as the 2nd seed. That was wrong. They finished first, but whatever. We both had them making it. Neither of us had the Wings, who were the talk of the town, making it. Another one right. I had 6 of 8 playoff teams correct. I missed Rochester and Albany. Of course, Albany, I think majority of people missed that one. Phil, you had 5 of 8. You missed Rochester, Albany, and Georgia. We will try to improve it this year. It's a little bit easier with one less team to deal with. But how we're going to do this, instead of just going 1 through 15 1 through 14 or 14 through 1, so we could talk about the same team on the same conversation. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and at the end, we'll just review. If you're not keeping track, if you're driving whatsoever, you don't have to write these numbers down. We'll kind of go over 1 through 14 at the end. So first team in alphabetical order. Phil, where do you have the Albany Firewolves finishing in the 2024-25 NLL season?
I have the Albany Firewolves number 2.
I have them number 3. So, Phil, why do you have them in the 2 spot? And then I'll explain why I have mine in the 3rd spot.
Yeah, they are really good. Turns
young.
out that we found out last year they are really good and really young, which is disturbing as a Bandits fan because they're going to be around for a long time and most likely getting better for years to come, which is also depressing. They're getting a first overall generational talent and Dyson Williams coming in to Albany.
Good.
What?
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's supposed to be pretty good, turns out. So we'll see. I mean, again, it's his rookie year, but at the same time, Albany's had plenty of rookies do really, really well. So I think not only having that as kind of a mentorship on your team from even just last year, they have a lot of rookies that just went through this. So I think he's going to fit in, and he's another young addition to a very young team. So I think he's just going to fit in really well again. Sadly, I think their defense is pretty good, and Jameson is really good. So I think they just have everything that we saw last year to be another really, really good team. I think the way they slipped this year is because teams have a full year of tape on them, on this young team that they didn't have on last year. They won't really have much on them with Williams, so that could throw a wrench into things. But last year they were the talk of the town of they don't play lacrosse like the rest of the league, and now the rest of the league knows how to play their style of lacrosse or knows what they're going to do. So I do think the league will catch up a little bit, but at the same time, their players might adapt and catch up now that they're not rookies and headed into a second season for a lot of them. So I don't know. They're going to be very, very, very tough to beat. And watching what they did last year and a team like Albany or like Buffalo, but a lot of the teams in the league are older at this point. I would say they are the young, great team. I don't know if there is another team that's that young and great. Rochester has a few young players, but they're just very different from everyone else in the NLL. And the problem is they play very mature, and they will get in your head, and they don't care about it, and they will force you to get penalties that you don't want to get. And so I think they're just, I don't know, they're a very tough team, and they're going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that where there's tape on these players now. It also, the other thing I wanted to mention of why they might struggle is now they have expectations, where last year they did not have the
That's
expectations.
True. Yeah.
They were very low on a lot of people's predictions and where they thought they were
15th.
going to finish. Yeah, with us, 15th. It would be weird if we had them 15th this year, one, because of what they did last year, and two, because there's only 14 teams. But yeah, when you come into the season now with high expectations to try to repeat and improve on what you did last year, it affects some young players in certain situations. Not saying that that's going to happen to theirs, but you have an Alex Simmons, you have a Ty Kurtz, you have a Ethan Walker, who I kind of saw coming last year. I did mention that, so pat on my back. But adding an Eric Fennell, who's going to be a more veteran piece on that offense as well. Dyson Williams will not have to be the savior of this franchise, where, going into last year, we were talking, okay, they're going to just have to get through this year, some of these young guns coming up, and then your savior is coming in. Now he doesn't have to be. Like, the pressure is not on him to save this franchise, because the franchise has already been saved by the likes that came before him. Now he's just another piece to a dangerous offense. You have a John Wagner for the full year. You have the defense in front of Doug Jameson, where if he has defense in front of him and the goal scoring help, he's not going to struggle in net like we saw on those years where he was the only named piece on this entire team. So they're still young, they're still growing, but like you mentioned, They're a team that does not care whatsoever about what you think about this team. They're going to get in your heads. We saw that twice versus Buffalo in the regular season. This is a team that is very dangerous, and if they can live up to expectations, they're going to be around for a very, very long time. Phil, next in order here, we're going to try to condense these because we have talked about these teams a lot.
Yeah, that was already too long.
Next in the alphabetical order, we're skipping Buffalo. We'll assign them last. Calgary. Where do you have Calgary?
I dislike everything Calgary did this offseason. I just don't like them anymore. Really soured on them. They got rid of some of my favorite players in the entire league. Obviously, they're still in the league, so that's fine. But it was fun cheering for a team that didn't mean much to the Bandits, so I could just kind of quietly cheer for them and mainly just the players on that team. But I have them 14th. I don't like anything they've done this offseason pretty much at all. They're in this awkward, we're rebuilding, but we're trying not to rebuild, but our team lost pretty much all of its talent, but we're going to bring in Curtis Dixon to kind of hang on, but at the same time not compete. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they know what they're doing. I have them 14th.
I have them 13th, and what's weird is last year I was talking nonstop about they're not going to have enough offense to do this. They're going to have to win games 8-9, 9-10, because their strength is in net and their strength is in the transition game. You lost Christian Del Bianco, who's on the holdout list right now. He already said he's not playing for Calgary this year. You traded away Shane Simpson, and you traded away Zach Currier. Your defense is going to struggle, and your net's going to struggle. I'm a big fan of Cam McLeod. I think he's going to have a good chance to excel in that net. The issue is he's not going to get the same defense in front of him in that transition game that a Christian Del Bianco has. And this is him trying to replace Christian Del Bianco is very similar to what Buffalo is going to be when they have to replace that player. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not putting that in the universe. But what's weird is I think their offense is better this year than it was last year. I know adding Curtis Dixon and Dane Dobie for a team that's sort of going through a transition is a bit weird. But I really think this offense is going to be better with the Dane Dobies, the Curtis Dixons, the Jesse Kings. Once Tyler Pace signs his deal, you got him as well. I really think this offense is going to be a lot better than it was last year, but I don't think they're going to win very many games because you're losing the MVP from 2 years ago. You're losing the goaltender of the year in Christian Del Bianco and the leader of your team. Yes, this is a big transition year, but again, I think their offense is going to be better. I think they will win a handful of games, but I do think this team is going to be towards the bottom of the standings all year long.
I also just don't know what their identity is anymore.
Yeah, I
mean, their identity was goalie in transition, and they got rid of all of that. So what are they now? Like you said, I do think their offense is better this year, but you've lost the big aspects of your team, and I don't really know what they are moving forward, at least right now.
Yeah, so that one was quicker because neither of us really think they're going to do a lot this year. Again, we're not taking shots at these teams. It's just we're evaluating what we're seeing here. So next in the order is a team that I had making the playoffs last year. Did not work out. Colorado, Phil. Where do you have Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado, arguably just as upsetting as Calgary for wildly different reasons. They were just gifted a chance at playoffs. I have them 7th, and they're just frustrating. They have. I mean, honestly, their whole season to me kind of hinges on Ward, and if he can rebound, they have the defense. Their offense is pretty dang stacked. At this point, they're looking really, really good, especially if Ryan Lee can come back healthy and come back even a shadow of what he used to be when he was dominating the league. The defense, the faceoffs, Tim Edwards. Just come to Buffalo finally. But Dylan Ward struggled a lot last year. He struggled the last 2 years until playoffs 2 years ago. And then he really went on a good streak. But honestly, I think this team goes as far as he does. If he can rebound to the old Dylan Ward, this team has every opportunity to be a good team again, which is a bummer. But if he struggles again, they have the offense to keep up with most teams. So I do think they're still going to be very competitive. I have them as a playoff team for that reason, but I really just truly believe they go as far as Dylan Ward takes them this year.
Yeah, I agree. I got them 5th. I fully agree with what you were saying about Dylan Ward. It's he needs to have a typical Dylan Ward season for this team to make the magic happen that we think might happen. I don't think this defense is going to be as strong as one might think. They got some good name players back there with Robert Hope and the player that I've talked about nonstop this offseason, Tim Edwards and Owen Down and so on and so forth. But this offense, you likely get Ryan Lee back after a year and a half of probably closer to 2 or 3 years of not being his true self since his 100-point season, where I think he was third in the league and missed all the playoffs where they went on that run. But you got Zed Williams. You added a Will Malcolm in the expansion draft because or not expansion, dispersal draft because Colorado needed another great offensive piece. But I think this offense is designed to be one of the leaders this year in goals for. And this is not a hint on my bold predictions because I have not made them yet. I have not figured out what they are. But it would not surprise me in the least if this is one of the highest scoring teams in the league this year because of how talented they are. Connor Robinson, add him as a depth scorer as well. Tyson Gibson's still there. So this offense is designed, and even Mike Laughlin, I haven't even mentioned him, but this offense is very, very dangerous. But I agree 100% with what you said. This team is going to go as far as Dylan Ward takes them. If you get peak Dylan Ward, this team is a title-winning team. But if you get a Dylan Ward that we saw last year, it's going to be shaky for them to crack the playoffs, in my opinion.
You forgot about my boy Thomas Vason, by the way.
Thomas Vason is currently on the team as well. But we'll move on in alphabetical order here, Phil, because I do that and Pat doesn't. Georgia, where do you have Georgia ranked in our prediction of the NLL standings on how they will end up?
I have, you said that very strange. I have Georgia 6th this year, making playoffs, doing well. They were a really good team last year, as we've noticed. They gave Buffalo all sorts of problems. I think they have the ability to do that again. They did very little in the offseason, so it's really banking on the team that you already had and hoping that they can kind of rebound / take that step forward. Very Buffalo Sabres-esque. The big thing with them, Brett Dobson is incredible. He can single-handedly win games, as we almost witnessed in playoffs and did witness in the regular season, as he just took down the Bandits by himself pretty much. And they have a good defense. They have a very comparable offense. They have an offense that can score. I don't think they're going to be a top scoring offense, but they have an offense that can get you enough points to win plenty of games. I think they're, at least from last year, and we'll see if they take that step forward from the offensive side, they kind of remind me of Toronto, where they have a pretty stacked defense, really good goalie, don't put up a ton of goals, have the ability to, and they had games last year where they put up a lot of goals, but as a whole on the year, on average, they really, put up 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, and then bank on your defense and goaltenders for wins. And I think that's the kind of team that this is, and I think they can do it again. I think they will be a tough victory pretty much day in, day out for any team going up against them. And I don't know, they're going to be a good team. They're going to be a stingy team. But I don't know if they have enough offense to carry them really deep, and I think they will lose the game here and there because of that.
Yeah, I got them 7th. This continues the trend of us not having the same teams ranked in the same spots. But, yeah, I agree with what you said once again. The offense is what is key for this team. You had Andrew Q, you had Shane Jackson and Lyle Thompson all in the 80s last year in points. You need a Lyle Thompson type of year where he puts up 110, 120 points on this team for them to excel and be that threat in the playoffs. And you have a stud in net. And Brett Dobson, I think, is one of the best, not just young goaltenders, but established goaltenders in this league going into, I believe, his 3rd year in the league now. But you need other players to step up. You need Brendan Bomberry to have a better year. You need Caleb Benedict to come in after missing his whole rookie year to come in. You need the likes of Zach Miller to be healthy for the full year. You need Seth Oakes to have another solid year. So you need complementary pieces around the studs that you have, because you do have studs. Q, Jackson, and Lyle Thompson are studs in this league, and they provide tons and tons of points. But you need that depth scoring bring around it to supplement that. Where like Buffalo, they have the two studs, and then they have great players that fall in line right behind them. So I do think Georgia's going to make some noise out there, but I don't see them coming in fourth or fifth like last year. I think they tumble a little bit because of how good the rest of the league has kind of caught up to them with the dispersal draft and all the other talent around them. But Phil, next up, Halifax. Where do you have Halifax?
I have Halifax buried a bit this year for the first time. They're really dropping off from top of the league contention. I have them 11th outside of playoffs this season.
I have them 12th, and this is not a bad, in my opinion. Like, we mentioned, I think it was 3 teams. We mentioned San Diego, Toronto, and Halifax all this offseason that are continuously good, but they can't continue to run it back. Halifax didn't run it back, and part of that might not have been their choice. Benesh is out the door. You had Shanks go out the door as well. It's a team that needed a change, and I think they got that. And that's exactly what they were mentioning on Lacrosse Classified. They mentioned that you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. You brought in a Jason Knox from the dispersal draft. I really like that pick there. It's going to be very interesting this season. And again, like I mentioned, I don't think it's bad that I have them this low because they needed to make some type of change. This could be the last year of Warren Hill on the Halifax Thunderbirds. He really needs to make a name for himself at 32 years old, 1 year left on this deal. You brought in Thomas Hogarth, so this offense is going to look very, very different. This defense is pretty much still the same and repeating it there, but this offense, you're going to need guys to step up. You got a Dawson Theed who's going to have to be a main guy on the left side there with Cody Jamieson. You're going to need a bow hunter to step up as well. The righties, and Jason Knox, like I mentioned, he needs to pile on to what he did with Panther City last year. So this team's going to be an interesting team, more of in a transition than a rebuild year. And I'm interested to see if they're able to prove a lot of doubters like myself wrong and continue to be a winning team, but just a different formula this year that is able to kind of cash in more than what previous Halifax teams have been able to do, where it's just one and done in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, for that point, I'm kind of happy they're blowing it up because that's how we kept predicting them every season, was like a top 5 team, and then they were one and done in playoffs. So right. Finally get to throw them down the list a little bit. Now they can prove all the haters wrong.
So next in the list here is Las Vegas Desert Dogs. They relocated to a different part in Las Vegas. Phil, where do you have the Desert Dogs ranked this year?
I have them relocated all the way to 13th in the standings. Their team looks rough, pretty much across the board. They got definitely some building block pieces for sure. It's not that they are sitting there with no talent whatsoever. They have some very talented pieces, but as a whole, there are a lot of holes on this team, and they have a lot of work to do to really make a name for themselves. I think they're going to struggle again this year. I think they're a team that could be headed in the right direction in the future, but I do not see them, especially when you look at the teams we have making playoffs and just other top teams in the league. I don't think they have what it takes to keep up.
Yeah, I have them 14th, but this is a team that I'm actually a little bit higher on them than you are, even though I do have them in 14th.
How is that possible?
It comes down to goaltending. Like, do I believe Landon Kells or Justin Getty can kind of carry this team? I don't know. I have not seen them prove it. I've seen them have solid games, like Justin Getty filling in for Doug Jamieson last year. I think he performed very, very well. Landon Kells had some very, very good games, but then he had some really bad games. You added Jonathan Donville from the dispersal draft. That's an instant giant bonus to this team. You added Shane Simpson from the trade market from Calgary's, shipping everybody out. Kyle Killen comes over for Vancouver. So they added pieces to this. You lose Rob Hellier, but the pieces they added kind of cancel that out. You need players like Dylan Watson to take a next step. Sean Wesley to take a next step. You need players to take those next steps, including Jack Hanna. He needs to be more consistent this year. It's more on the defensive end. Like, do they have enough pieces on the back end to help these goaltenders develop into what this team is hoping they can develop into? And that's a big question. I don't know. Kirst, we love Kirst. You mentioned him as a possible trade candidate, even though you knew there's no way Vegas is going to let this happen. But he's a stud in the transition game. This is a team that has a lot of pieces, but I don't know if they have all the pieces to tie it together this coming year. And a lot of it has to do with the back end and goaltending. I think their offense can be legit, and I think they can be more of a middle to top tier offense because they do have some young, talented pieces that they can put it together. But it's more about, can Sean Williams kind of take all these smaller individual pieces, tie it together, and make something, and kind of go on like an Albany run where nobody sees it coming. Like, I can't see an Albany run, but I can see them not finishing in the basement. It's just, I have not seen enough for me to not put them in the basement right now. Phil, next in order, as I try to click on the next one here. How am I going in order here? It would be Rochester. Where do you have Rochester this coming season?
I don't know if Rochester is next.
Ottawa. I apologize. Ottawa. I had a brain fart there. Where do you have Ottawa ranked this coming year?
The alphabet can be tough.
Ottawa
is kind of in a cluster of teams. I mean, to me, 10, 11, 12, if you want to go like tiers, 13, 14, which we've already talked about, Vegas and Calgary, I have just kind of at the bottom. And then Ottawa, to me, we've already said Halifax is 11. I have Ottawa 12. I won't reveal who is 10 yet, but I think that cluster of like 3, 10, 11, 12 are all kind of interchangeable. I'd like, for Jeff Teat's sake, Ottawa to be a little bit higher on this list, but their team to me you and I have been burned 2 years in a row. We've each predicted them to boldly make the playoffs. I think I was closer than you were, but they still didn't make it, so it still didn't matter. They're just a team that I don't think either of us want to get burned by again. And I don't know if, once again, they've done enough in the offseason to really improve their standing and improve where they are in the league. They still have some great players on this team. A second year of Callum Jones is going to be fantastic. The dude is amazing. They have some great defensive players. Obviously, Jeff Teat is incredible, one of the best in the game right now. But do they have enough on their team to make a push up the standings and make it for playoffs, especially after last year being burned by them? I don't know. And their goaltending is a little bit up in the air. Higgins seems like he'd be the guy that you would want as your starter, but I know you're a huge Higgins fan. But when you compare him with the top 5-6 goalies in the league, I don't know if he'd be up there. So is he enough of a difference maker to get this team to playoffs?
Yeah, I have them 10th, and the only reason I really have them, like you were mentioning with the tiers there, as I pull this up really quick, 1 second, like anywhere from like 5th to 11th in my standings, I had a really tough time trying to organize those teams. Like the bottom 3 in Halifax, Calgary, and Vegas, I already knew were the bottom 3. And the top 2, which I haven't named yet, I had them solid top 2. And then there's a small tier there, and then it was 5 through 11, which I really had a tough time. And I even mentioned it to you and Pat. I was having a tough time ranking these ones. But I love Higgins in net. I think that's a massive upgrade over Dunkerley. I think that it's going to improve them drastically. I think a full year Tager Clark there, Josh Courier adding more depth there. I love Jacob Dunbar. I love that addition on this team. And then you got the likes of Jeff Teat, Riley O'Connor. They run it back with a lot of this offense. It's a lot of this defense. If they can come together as a full unit, like all the pieces they added last year, that's why you were so hyped about them. We thought they won the offseason last year. And then, everything didn't come together on the back end. They struggled in net and they struggled on the back end. They did not struggle scoring goals. If the defense can come together, if Kevin Brownell, if the likes of Callum Jones, like you already mentioned, LaFontaine, Noseworthy, Wild, so on and so forth, if they can tie everything together on the back end, this team can be a playoff team. But I'm not getting burned again. I have them sitting in the 10th spot for an absolute reason. Now, Phil, is Philadelphia. I went way out of order with Rochester. Philadelphia, where do you have the Philly Wings?
Yeah, you did go way out of order. I have Philadelphia in that 10 spot. They're a team that was really hyped last year for unknown reasons to us. But I think they did some great things in the offseason. I still think they have a team that can make some noise again. And the biggest addition, which if you've listened enough to this show, I am just huge, huge, huge on goaltending making a big difference, and another team that this dispersal draft is just causing me so much internal pain. Another team that just lucked into an absolute monster. Nick DeMood is a great young goalie, and I think, like you just mentioned with Higgins, I think a goalie can change a team's fate that quickly, and DeMood can be that guy. We saw it last year in the playoffs especially, but we saw it all of last year with Panther City, that he is just that good, and he was that good on a mediocre to bad team. Put him on a team that's a little bit better. I don't know if they have all the pieces to make this kind of work, but I do think he's just such a big upgrade and difference maker in net that he's another one of those guys that night in, night out, he will give you every opportunity to win. You're not going to lose because of him, and I think Philadelphia is good enough with him in net to make some noise. Obviously, I still have them 10th. I don't have them, fifth or something crazy or even making playoffs, but I do think DeMood changes their fate quite a bit and just gets them higher, but I don't know if they have enough pieces on the team as a whole to really push into a playoff position.
Yeah, I got him 11th. I love the Damoud draft pick. I think doing that and then trading for
Brutal.
Phil Caputo and Liam Patton as well, and then a 2027 draft pick as well. I love that trade, sending out Zach Higgins and getting a stud in Damoud, and then you got Deacon Knott right behind him. This is a team that I liked this offseason better than I did the year before, but I still don't have them in a playoff spot. I think they're on the right direction. Brendan O'Neill is a great draft pick if he can transition to the box game. But the biggest thing is Holden Cattoni and Blaze Reardon are already on the PUP. Can they come back? And I think they will come back. But again, another year of Holden Cattoni not coming into camp healthy is a big red flag for me, because he was a stud when he was in the lineup. He just wasn't in the lineup long enough. Mike O'Connell, he was a big addition last year. Scott Dominey, he was a big addition last year. So did they do enough this offseason that can push them over the top? I don't think so. I think their offense might struggle a bit, which is weird when you have Reza Terrace and Mitch Jones on the same team. But I don't know if they have enough depth around that. And you might have to rely on a Brendan O'Neill to kind of make more of a statement than he's probably ready to do, not playing the box game in a while. So Philly, I did not see the praise last year. Neither of us did, and I don't see the praise this year as well. So we'll move forward to Rochester here. Phil, where do you have the Rochester Nighthawks?
You finally made it to Rochester.
Finally got to it.
I have them 5th. I think their team is really good looking on paper.
Yes.
They were very hot and cold last year, so it's all about, similar to a lot of these teams, it's about putting it together, and I think a big part of that is getting Hartley healthy for the whole year. If he can be healthy for a whole year, he's a very, very good goalie. You love watching him play, and he is really entertaining to watch play. But he's also really good, and he's still really young, so if he can safely play lacrosse, do not get another concussion. That was very scary watching him go down, and we do not want that to happen again. So if he can be healthy for this team, they are pretty loaded everywhere. Offense, defense, they are pretty young. Fields, McCumvey, Knight, Lanchberry, Smith, Waters on the offense, and then Gillies, Gilray, Jensen, Lord, Medeiros, O'Connor, Ogilvy, Reese, Tutton. I mean, this team, they got names for days, and even in the dispersal draft, I already said Medeiros, but your boy who you wanted. They got a really good team. I mean, just straight up and down, every aspect of it. It pains me to say so, because obviously the Bandits have quite the rivalry with Rochester, but they are a good-looking team, and if Hartley can stay healthy and be the goalie he was even last year, anytime he got the chance, even in playoffs when he came back from being injured, 81.6% save percentage, bounced right back to the player that you kind of knew he was, so it didn't really affect him at all as far as his play goes. So if this team can put it all together, which they have struggled with the last 2 seasons, they can be a really good and scary team, but that is the big question. They've been very, very streaky the last 2 years. They had, a really hot start and a terrible second half 2 years ago, and then last year there was more of the same, just hot and cold all over the place, right? So it's really, can they put a full season together, and can Hartley play a full year?
Yeah, it's I don't have a lot to say about this one because you already nailed it. It really comes down to Hartley and Net, and I have them sixth, but this might hurt a lot of people's feelings. Sorry, I wouldn't be shocked if they win the whole thing. Like honestly, I think this team is that good. Adding a Chad Tutton, add a Anthony Jokum as well. Experience in playoffs and experience in winning games and in clutch situation. Anthony Jokum is he's been to the finals 2 straight seasons. Yeah, 2 straight seasons, maybe even three. I can't remember if he was on Colorado's team where they won it as well. But this is a team that has all the pieces and all the makings to do it. And I think those two back end additions to this team, as long as Rylan Hartley stays healthy, and you already mentioned it, I love watching him play in net. If he can stay healthy, this team can win the title. Like I would not be shocked if this team at the end of the year is raising that cup. So we'll move forward to San Diego, another team, another big year last year, but another year where they went through a full onslaught of offensive changes. This was another team that we've mentioned, like I mentioned with Halifax, Toronto, and San Diego. They went through a lot of changes on the front end. We'll see if that finally pushes them over the edge. But where do you have the San Diego Seals finishing this season?
I have the Seals, at least in the season, finishing number one on my list. I'm sure Bandits fans listening are going to be upset that we don't have the Bandits number one, but their team, like most seasons the last few years, is stacked, and they are an extremely good, at least regular season team. They have not really put it together in the playoffs, but regular season they seem to dominate year in, year out, and it seems like they are primed to do it again. They finally did mix up their team a little bit and lost some pieces, added some pieces, which honestly for them I think is good. They needed a bit of a switch up, but Benesh, bringing him in is just depressing again, but exciting for him. Good for Ryan playing at least one more season. He showed that he still has the last year, 42 goals, 81 points. Kyle Jackson on the righties, Berg, Hellier coming in, another player who I really wanted if Buchanan left, which he didn't, so that's perfectly fine. But another player that's just really good and solid on that right side. And then Trey Leclerc, Ben McIntosh. This team they're good. They have a lot of defensive players as well. And then Chris Origlieri, only 22, continuing to get better. Another one of the better goalies in the entire league. I know we've mentioned that multiple times now, but there's some pretty solid, I'd have to go look at some point, and maybe I'll do a goalie ranking before the season starts because I like goalies so much. But I'd say he's probably top 6 and looks really, really good, and he's very young. So this team, if like everything else, if they put it all together, which they've shown they can, at least in the regular season for the last, 3, 4, 5 years, I think they'll do it again, and I think they will be the team to beat in the regular season, and then it's up to them to finally do something in the playoffs.
Well, Bandit Land and Bandit fans won't just be mad at you. They'll be mad at me because I also have them number one. And the big reason is I think they fixed the offense. And the offense that kind of went dry in the playoffs, I think they fixed it. I think Ryan Benesh, I think Rob Hellier, and I think Ben McIntosh are all going to be giant additions, yes, on the older side. But you need that veteran presence in the playoffs. And I think their defense is one of the best in the game. They got, for those that care, in the face-off dot, they got the best in the game in Trevor Baptiste, and then Orig in net, one of the best goaltenders in the entire game. This is another team that's going to give Bandits a fit this year, Bandits trying to come home with their 3rd straight title. So, I got them first for another reason, and I think this is last year they got over the hump the first playoff matchup. They got in the second round. They got swept by Albany. I think this could be a team that wins it all. And I know I said that about Rochester, but San Diego, they have all the makings to be another stud of a team. Phil, wrapping it up, Saskatchewan, where do you have the Rush?
They are 8th for me this year. They're the team I'm going to get. They're going to burn me. It's going to be a good time, but they are my Ottawa / New York from last year, of the team that I predict to make it, and then they won't make it. But their team looks, again, another team that looks pretty much all the way through really good. We saw them show flashes of it last year being a good team. To me, goaltending is a question mark. Chiliano, not bad by any means, but not one of my top goalies in the league, but he's still a very comparable goalie. He's a good goalie. And then their offense, Keenan Mans had a monster season last year for them. If he can continue that trajectory up and take another step, that'd be huge for them. Walter as well. And then Church, Shanks, Triolo, Dodds again. But is he holding out?
He is on the holdout list right now, yes.
All right, so no Dodds. But still, their team, I mean, Church alone is fantastic. And then they have a lot of just solid defensive players. Mike Messenger is one of the better ones in the game. They're a good team. Overall, I think they showed last year that they're a team that wants to be back in the playoffs. Obviously, everybody does, but like you've mentioned a few times this offseason, they are a championship quality, pedigree, city, town, team, all of it. They want it. They don't like being out of the playoffs. They want to be back in it, and I do think they have the team to get there. Chiliano concerns me a little bit, but they are kind of my bolder. I don't know if they'll be the bold prediction. We'll see. But I could see them not making it, but at the same time, they are my 8th team this year.
I agree. They're my 8th team as well. I don't have much else to add to that because Chiliano is my big question mark as well. If you get Frankie on par with everybody else in the league, this is a great team. But if you get off Frankie, this team's going to struggle. So like a lot of teams that I mentioned already, it comes down to goaltending in net. But I do have them sneaking into the playoffs. I think they kind of got short end of the stick with their schedule last year, where they could have probably made a run otherwise. It was a terrible March for them because of their schedule. So with a more evened out and spread out schedule this year, I think Saskatchewan can finally break that mold and get back into the playoffs. Phil, 3 teams left. First one, Toronto Rock. Where you got them?
I have Toronto 4th this year, slipping a little bit from
3 in a row we've nailed, Phil. San Diego 1, Saskatchewan 8, Toronto 4.
Yeah, I think they're going to slip. I don't think they're going to be 15-3 again. I think that the league will be able to catch up to them. They're the same team. They always are. They're the same team that they're rolling it back with, pretty much identical. I don't know if they did much at all in the offseason other than, once again, lose Tom Schreiber for a little while. We'll see when he comes back. They like to do that every offseason just to kind of mix it up. They just bench Schreiber for a little while due to an injury, and then he'll come back and save the day, as Captain America would. But their teams, they're really good. Their defense, solid all the way through. Nick Rose is amazing. Really, I mean, Bandits fans, everybody knows Toronto extremely well. It's the same team that they have been for the last 4 or 5 years now. It's just all defense, amazing goaltending, pretty decent offense. But again, without Schreiber, I think they struggle a little bit more. Bushi, to me, isn't enough on the right side to really make that big of an impact. Corey Small, while good, added another year to his years. Mark Matthews, same thing, kind of disappeared in playoffs. Dan Craig, pretty solid depth player, but do they have enough on offense to make an impact and make just the standings jump you need? Again, their team only lets in, 6, 7, 8, 9 goals a game, so their offense isn't asked to do much, but I don't think their offense this year can do as much as they would like it to do.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they did enough in the offseason here. It's kind of them just running it back and trying again. And it will help getting Latrell Harris back, but your defense was not the weak spot of this team. It was, meeting Buffalo again in the playoffs. You're hoping that you can avoid them at least and get to the finals. But, yeah, Mark Matthews came up short. It really going to come down to if Tom Schreiber is not healthy coming into the season and he's going to be missing some time, that means Chandler Rogers is going to have to play more forward. That means you're taking out that transition element as well. So I don't think they did enough to continue to compete with the teams that are on the rise. I think they just stayed stagnant, and I don't think you can do that in the NLL, because if you stay stagnant, they're going to catch you and they're going to supplant you. So I think that's why I have them slipping a bit in 4th, and it really wouldn't surprise me if they're in 4th and they get upset, which I have Colorado 5th. I would not be shocked if Colorado upset them in the first round. They're one and done, and then they actually have to take a harder look at what this team actually looks like and the identity of it, because this is the one team where I mentioned maybe it's time for a head coaching change, because I think all the pieces are there to win it. They can't kind of just running it back again, and repeating the same thing kind of gets you. But we'll go over the final team before we announce where we have Buffalo. If you're keeping track, there's really only 2 positions Buffalo could be in. Phil, Vancouver, where you got them?
If you have been keeping track, I would really hope I don't have the reigning champs ninth outside of playoffs, but I have Vancouver ninth this season.
Four
To
in a row.
me, this all depends on
Yes.
Christian Del Bianco.
Yes. 100%.
If they find a way to get him to come over to Vancouver for some monster trade, their team goes through the roof and will bump out somebody I have in playoffs, maybe a Saskatchewan who's on the bubble ish. Their team is ready to make that jump, but like a lot of teams we've called out this year or this episode, goaltending is where it comes down to. Adam Walsh, who was their main guy last year, did not really do it. He's very young, so could he be better this season? Yes, they have a couple other goalies. O'Toole, first rounder, 21 as well, pretty young. Don't know if you wanted him to step in right away, but it's possible. Wrigley, I believe, is only 22, so not unfathomable by any means that he could step up and be that great. But if you get a guy who's already established like Christian Del Bianco is, and for this team, for this coach, I think their team will go through the roof. But outside of that, they have the team to do it. Charlin Beatties is incredible as a lefty. Keegan Ball, incredible as a righty. Crowley. And then their defense, they have a lot of defensive players, including one of our favorites, Ryan Dilks, who's just an absolute beast out there. Jeff Cornwall, who I wanted a little bit for the Bandits. He looks really, really good still. Bowering, Charbonneau, Grant, Lady, Shenado, Beers, Mitz. I mean, their defense is stacked. Their offense has enough to get it done. It all, to me, once again, like we've talked about so many times, which is why Matt Fintz is so incredibly important, comes down to goaltending.
That's exactly how I feel. The Christian Del Bianco effect, if they can somehow
Would
swing
be
the deal,
massive.
it will affect what Vancouver looks like because he's going to take an absolute haul. If I was Vancouver, I would just wait until he's a free agent next year because you can't franchise him again. So I would just wait and see if Christian Del Bianco hits the waiver or the free agency market. But the only other thing to tie Buffalo into this one, keep an eye on Brad McCulley. That's all I'm going to say. Keep an eye on what his role with Vancouver is and if that changes in any ways because he is still here in Buffalo. I think he still resides here because I think he still works here because I've seen some of his Instagrams and I think he's still in Buffalo. So it would not be a very long commute for him to just come over to the locker room. But yeah, I got them ninth. And the big reason I have them ninth as opposed to like an Ottawa lower is the Kurt Malowski effect. I think he has the weapons and I think he has the ability to sneak them into the playoffs. It was really tough between them and Saskatchewan, but I lean Saskatchewan just because I think Chiliano is better than Walsh right now. And I think Saskatchewan's offense is a tad better than Vancouver's, and Vancouver has better defense. So it was kind of just a toss-up. I wouldn't be shocked if they're in the ninth spot, but I have or eighth spot, but I have them in the ninth spot. So Phil, that wraps us up. Hour 23 in. Where do you have the Buffalo Bandits, the two-time defending champion?
I have them third this season, and honestly, it's nothing really against Buffalo. I just think they struggled a lot during the season last year before they really got it going, and I'm a little concerned that that might happen again this season, where I don't know if they'll struggle quite as much as they did, but I could see them simply struggling a little bit more than we're used to in the regular season. I mean, third is still pretty dang good. I didn't drop them a ton by any means, but we did see them struggle a lot during the season before they really got it together at the second half and then ran the table from there. I think we could see that a little bit again. I think they have a team, obviously, to push for a championship, to push for first overall. If they put it all together, if they have a very consistent season, there's no reason they can't be first. But I think last year we saw just a little bit of the regular season cracks starting to form here and there, where we might see that again this year, especially like we've talked. I mean, Albany is a team on the rise. San Diego made a lot of nice offseason moves to also push themselves to the top. So it's not that Buffalo is bad, but Buffalo is really good, stayed the same, whereas other teams are trying to do their best to catch up to them as much as they possibly can. And their schedule seems brutal that we went over recently. They play a lot of the really top talented teams twice, and then the second half of their season is just brutal with no break. So I think that could have an effect as well, just on their year, but third, still pretty solid.
Yeah, I have them second. And it has nothing to do with what they did in the offseason and what their team looks like. It's just the competition around them just got so much better this offseason that everybody's chasing them. And I think this it could be. And I know last year there was, 5, 8, and 10 teams that were still alive for that final spot last year at the final deadline. I think it could be even closer. I really think that a lot of these teams, besides Calgary and Vegas, I really could see any 12 teams making the playoffs, which is even Vegas, if they go on some miracle run and Landon Kells really kills it in net.
Get Calgary out of here.
So I really... It's going to be a very, very, very tough year for Buffalo Bandits to go for a three-peat, but I think they have all the pieces to do it. And you're coming to camp healthy. The only thing to watch for is if it was truly the defense last year in front of Matt Vince, or if it was Matt Vince taking a bit of time to readjust, because we mentioned it. He did not play the summer the year before. And maybe that takes a little bit more time to get back into his groove. I more lean that it was probably the defense with a small combination of him not playing in the summer.
Injury as well, a little bit.
Injury as well. So, yeah, it's going to be very tough. So let's run it through again. Phil, give me your 1 through 14 real quick.
San Diego, Albany, Buffalo, Toronto, Rochester, Georgia, Colorado, Saskatchewan, all making the playoffs. And then outside, Vancouver, Philadelphia, Halifax, Ottawa, Las Vegas, and Calgary.
In order, I got San Diego in first, Buffalo, Albany, Toronto, Colorado in fifth, Rochester, Georgia, and Saskatchewan are my playoff teams, 1 through 8. And then I got Vancouver, Ottawa, Philly, Halifax, and Calgary, along with Vegas as 9 through 14. So we will have the graphic out there. If you don't want to just jot all this down, you can check out our social media sites. Pat made a beautiful graphic that has both of our predictions, and maybe midway through the season we'll reevaluate and see where we are. But Phil, that wraps up this one. Super long, but like we said, we're getting ready for the NLL season. All these episodes are probably going to be on the longer side until we get back to 2 shows a week in December. Anything else you want to add to the show before we shut it down until next week?
Sabres are up 2-1.
2-1 Sabres going into third.
But
yeah, that will wrap up this episode. Next episode, we got Indy versus Buffalo. We'll talk about 4 Sabres games to hopefully have good news about. And then we'll go over our NLL bold predictions. 3 for Phil, 3 for me. Should be a shorter episode because we're not going over 14 teams. But yeah, don't forget to check out our social media sites for our schedule and stay tuned for the Bandits Fantasy game. So that will end this episode. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can check out our store on our link tree on our socials or the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.